Okay. I think I'm going to need to get a bit more decorations. Oh well. Doesn't matter. It looks pretty. Da, 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 da. I just love the holiday seasons. Merry Christmas, Sherlock Holmes. Let me guess, my laptop is on. Yep, I should have known. I didn't do a Christmas special last year, so it looks like I'm stuck with one this year. Hello, I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it, you listen. I know I don't exactly look the part of the FanFic Critic, but I wasn't exactly expecting this, so just consider it a change. I mean, it's a Christmas special, so I'm going to look different. I'm going to look nicer than I usually look. Okay, so today's story is called Merry Christmas, Mr. Sherlock Holmes by Toto Fan Forever. It's rated K, it's in English, it's Hurt, Comfort, Friendship, and it's Sherlock Holmes and it has 1 review. So let's not waste any time and read this fanfic, because that's the only way I know how to celebrate Christmas, is by reading Christmas fanfics. It's kind of sad, actually. Author's notes. I already know it's a grammar mistake. It's in the author's note. Pretty much they forgot the apostrophe S for author's notes. Unless this has like multiple authors writing the story. I don't know, maybe that could be what it means, but I highly doubt it. So let's read it. Okay! I know it's a little early for Christmas and I don't have even the first chapter of the story written, but it was bugging me and I had to get this down. Please tell me what you think and please be nice. I know I might have Sherlock Holmes out of character, but I'm working on it and I hope it will be as enjoyable as it can be. It's written in Wimberley's point of view. Please review, and my dear friends, a Merry Christmas. Oh, I'm sorry, and have my dear friends a Merry Christmas. Disclaimer, I do not own Sherlock Holmes. If I did, I would die of the sheer awesomeness. I only own the story idea that he is in. Enjoy. What do you mean he hasn't spoken for 3 months? My friend Kayla literally screamed in my ear as I drove through the piles of traffic and snow. I rolled my eyes. She can be so dramatic sometimes, but in this situation, she has every right to be. It's exactly as I said. At first, I thought it was because he was on a challenging case, but when I asked him about it, he just growled in response. I haven't gotten 2 words out of that man. We turned a corner. The snow began to descend more quickly, but I wasn't worried about the gray slush under our tires. All I could think about was Holmes. In a weird way, I have grown attached to him. Sure, I always read about him and watch every movie based on him, but this was different. He came into my life in a strange fashion. It happened last spring when I was resting in my cozy hotel, when all of a sudden, I heard a loud thump on the door. When I opened it, a tall man in a gray overcoat lay at my feet, bleeding and unconscious. Who knew that this man was the great Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street, from those marvelous stories that I have read so carefully? Even now I find it hard to believe. His arch nemesis, Moriarty, the Napoleon of crime, turned out to be the Napoleon of technology as well. As the Reichenball falls, just before he fell, Moriarty had shot Holmes with a gun, crafted from a crystal named Brynide. This crystal has some fascinating properties of traveling at super speeds in short distances. The bullet didn't kill him, like Moriarty originally thought, but sent him to our year, 2031. Huh, this is interesting. It's in the future. Like, beyond, it's 2010 right now. I still wonder if this is all a creative lie, but he has proven who he is countless times. It has been a couple months, and now we have become good friends, which is why I'm so worried about him. Why won't he talk to me? Why hasn't he been accepting cases? Why is he letting Huntsman pick on his methods? Why won't Earth to Wimberley? I shook my thoughts. I had forgotten Kayla was even in the car. You just ran through a red light. Stop worrying. He will be all right if you give him time, she said. I'm not only worried about his mental state, Kayla, I whispered. Tomorrow is Christmas, and I have no idea what he could possibly want. Kayla sighed. Well, it's a good thing you dragged me out here. Once we hit the mall, we can surely find something. Nothing was said for the rest of the drive. It wasn't until we pulled into the parking lot she spoke again. I noticed that this person is kind of missing some, punctuation. Well, not periods or anything like that, but they are kind of missing commas in parts where they kind of need it, so it kind of somewhat disrupts the flow of the story. But other than that, this isn't too bad so far, so let's continue. Have you thought of something? I glared at her. She smiled. Come on, Wim. You can think of something. We began to walk into the immense mall. So many stores. We walked through every department we could find. Clothing stores, gaming stores, hardware stores, hunting stores, candy stores. The list went on and on. I glanced at my watch. 8:30 already. The mall closed at 9. And they seem to like to use exclamation points a lot. But then again, this is supposed to be first person. So I guess I can let that slide. We were running out of time. When I told Kayla the time, she beamed. She always loves stressful situations, and she would like my job at Wendy's. We ran through the crowds in hopes of finding our detective a present he would want, from a t-shirt to the word London on it, to a snow globe. Okay, I have to pause for a minute. Just because he's British, who says that he likes London? I mean, look at Sweeney Todd, for example. He hates London. Or at least I think he does. That's the implication of that song. So, let's continue. To a snow globe with Jeremy Brett, he always liked that portrayal of himself. We searched, but could find nothing. Finally, we walked into a small board game store. What board game would he want? Kayla was excited, while I grew more nervous. As we brisked through the crowds, her eyes brightened. A blue box, big and bright, glistened in the light in the back of the store. I gazed at it and smiled. 1001 riddles and problems for the mind. It was perfect. He would love it. I reached my hand out for the box, but Kayla beat me to it. This is my present for Holmes. I'm not going to make it that easy for you, she said triumphantly. Ugh! Santa would have to put me on the naughty list, for I will kill her later. We purchased the box and had it wrapped. I glanced at my watch and my heart sank. Before the words came out of my mouth, a speaker blared out, "Attention Christmas shoppers, we are now closed. Please make last-minute purchases and head out the east exit. We hope you had a good time, and please have a Merry Christmas." We were too late. I was too late. When the mall closed, the whole world closed in this town. Now I don't have a present for Holmes. It doesn't help that he is depressed, but now I can't make it any better. Kayla glanced at me to say something, but didn't. She knew that nothing could be said to make this better. I had failed Holmes as a friend. "It's okay, Wilson. I'm not angry with you," he would say. But I will be angry with myself. What am I going to do now? I hardly noticed that we already were heading back home when she spoke. "Look over there." I glanced outside the window. A tiny store with a neon sign caught our eyes. It wasn't the prettiest looking building, but that didn't matter. My attention was on the blinking words, "Open 24 hours a day." Convenient. I didn't even know what the name of the store was called when I walked in, but from the deduction skills I have received from Holmes, I could tell that it was an antique store. So much for presents, but something about the store beckoned me to stay. Just glancing, I looked around old chairs and books and everything in between. What would Holmes want here? I grew more wary. I couldn't find anything here. I turned, they forgot the R. I turned to go when an old voice called to me. Young lady, can I help you? He looked about as ancient as his store. Just looking, I mumbled. He nodded and continued along his way, dusting his collection. You like music? He asked abruptly. I stared at him. Why would he care if I loved music? But I decided to entertain him. Very much, sir. He about danced with glee, which made me wonder about the mental state of this man. He continued dancing until he went into a coughing fit. I rushed to help him, but he raised his hand and whispered that he was okay. Once he calmed down, the man smiled. I had 3 offers to sell this instrument, but I knew someone would come who needs it. I stared at him in wonder. What was he talking about? He ran towards the back of his little store and came back with it. Perfect. I found the perfect gift for him. Looking up to the seller, I reached for my wallet, but he stopped me. You don't need to pay for it, dearie. Declare it as a present from me to you. His eyes twinkled as he handed me the gift. I could have hugged that man. Hey, I could have kissed him. Instead, I smiled blissfully at the instrument and nodded my thanks. Merry Christmas, my dear girl, he said as I walked outside. I smiled in response. I have found the perfect gift. Thank you, God, I whispered as we walked in. Kayla quietly sneaked into her room, which I always had reserved for her. I wanted to go to bed too, but one thing needed to be done. I found leftover wrapping paper decorated in music notes. If he couldn't deduce what I had gotten for him, he is truly depressed. As I finished folding the paper and applying the tape, I smiled at myself. It may not solve his problems, but it will surely help. In his room, Holmes was the last person to awake. Holmes was the last person to awake? Wouldn't it make more sense if it said Holmes was the last person to wake? Or to wake up? I don't know, maybe awake is correct, but it just, I don't know, I don't know. I would have said was the last person to wake up. That would kind of make more sense. Kayla and I were already downstairs waiting. It was 10 o'clock in the morning when the tired man walked softly down the stairs. He didn't notice us until his heel hit the bottom step. He looked up and his face went from sad to surprised. For the first time in 3 months he spoke. Wilson, Zoe, what are you doing? His voice cracked from lack of use. We smiled, and in unison, as if we rehearsed it, we said in almost a whisper, Merry Christmas, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Then we stepped aside for him to see our wrapped treasures. He stared at them as if he didn't understand. Then slowly he sunk down towards Kayla's first, carefully unwrapping the paper as if it was the most delicate task of his life. He uncovered the box of puzzles. He blinked in surprise, then smiled. Then he laughed so loudly that we had to join in. His laughter meant that Kayla had found a great gift. I will never forget that laugh. Nodding his thanks to her, Holmes turned towards mine. My heart began to race again, and a question lingered in my mind as he slowly pulled off the paper. What if he doesn't like it? He finally removed the wrapping and glanced at me in shock. A black case meant for holding an instrument was in his hands. My heart sank until he rushed to open the case with his hands trembling. I was worried he was having a nervous attack, but he finally managed to pull the clasp off. Once it was opened, I waited. Nothing. He just stared at it, but it wasn't an angry look or a hurt one. I knew from the glisten in his eyes that he was inspecting the instrument with wonder. Where did you get this, Wilson? He finally asked. I smiled. I found it in an old antique store. He nodded slowly, and a smile twitched on his face. Then, with care, he picked up the instrument and began to play the most beautiful music I had ever heard in my life. The violin was the best present I could have gotten him. And what a concert he gave us. Later, he told me he played his best, for he had nothing else to give. From beautiful Mozart to modern Christmas songs, he played fluently, and his eyes gleamed with pleasure. Kayla winked at me with congratulations. I beamed at myself and sunk into the wonderful notes and tunes Home created. He played for hours and didn't stop. Kayla had to go home, and Holmes played while she closed the door. The only thing though was that as the day continued, his notes began to deepen and darken. I glanced at him, but he was lost in his own world. A familiar tune began to play, and now I know what has been depressing him for so long. I have known Holmes to hide his feelings, but there can be no doubt from the familiar tune on that violin that he was very sad indeed. Okay, I'm just gonna, I know the tune of the song, but I'm not gonna sing it. I'm just gonna read out the lyrics. I'll be home for Christmas, you can count on me. Please have snow and mistletoe and presents on the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams. And that's the end of that. I'm so sorry if he was out of character, but I hope you enjoyed it the same. Please comment and tell me what you think. Merry Christmas, everyone. Well, I am very pleased to say that for once, I read a nice, well, I've read nice fanfics before, but for a special for FanFic Critic, it was actually a nice story. We all know from my last special that the story I had to read was not very pleasant. I want to kill the honest reviewer for making me read that. I seriously do, but I will get my own revenge on him. You count on it. But not now. Not now, because you want to know something? It's Christmas. The holidays are right around the corner. It doesn't matter what religion you're part of. I mean, it's a great holiday season. And this was a very nice holiday fanfic. I mean, to be honest with you, I am familiar with Sherlock Holmes. I haven't read any of the books. But, you know, I thought that they did a really nice job with the story. There was a couple little issues, like with the grammar and the commas in that one misspelled word. But other than that, it was very nice. It had a nice flow to it. It was actually written the correct way for first person. The paragraph spacing, oh man, I could just kiss this author for having decent paragraphs. So overall, it was a very, very good story. And I only got one review, so let's see what the review is. This is written by Tap Dog. I'm sorry, I have to... One of those stupid ads popped up on fanfiction.net. You know when you go to fanfiction.net and one of those stupid ads show up, you're about to read a story and then it like fades and it says, fanfiction.net is brought to you by... That just happened. It's wicked annoying. Now, before I was so rudely interrupted by the ad, let's read the review that the story got. That vignette was so well written and your original characters were so well rounded for such a short piece that it works well even as a standalone. I enjoyed it very much. Thanks for sharing it. And I have to agree with this person. Most of the time I don't really like stories where it has like original characters in it, but I thought this was very good. And you know, the idea of this story about, you know, Sherlock Holmes being in the future, that it's very intriguing to me, and I kind of hope that this author has, you know, continued this story, or if this is supposed to be a one-shot and this is based off of their other story, I'm interested to read it because, you know, this story intrigued me a bit. It'd be interesting to see what it would be like if Sherlock Holmes was in the future. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think you guys can tell that I enjoyed this story very much. It was a good story, a nice Christmas story. Man, you know, it's refreshing. Well, I hope you guys all have a nice holiday season. Happy holidays, with love from the FanFic Critic. Till then, I'll see you all later. Good night.